do you persist with a spirit of excellence? How do you persist with a spirit of excellence? Good morning. My name is Ann McNeil, and I am, yes, I am. I am the master wealth builder, helping my clients go from millions to billions. Can I say that again? Galen, Peter, welcome to the podcast. Can I say that again? Good morning, everybody. How do you persist until you succeed with a spirit of excellence? We're talking about the principle of persistence today from the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And the persistence has been called many different things. But what's most important is, what does it mean to you to persist? I'd like to suggest that unless you have a burning desire for something or someone, that's up to you, something that will pull you through, not just pull you to, but it will pull you through every struggle, every challenge, every opportunity for growth. That is what persistence is to some of us. And today we're going to talk about this principle with a very special guest, but not right now. But before we do that, I want to welcome to the podcast our co-host, none other than, we'll start with Dr. Peter James, and then we'll go to Galen Bingham. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Ann McNeil. Hope you are doing well today. You know, that Napoleon Hill says in his text, the majority of people are ready just to throw up their aims and purposes overboard and give up on their persistence at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. I like to say they give up at the first sign of roadblocks, obstacles, and hurdles. And I wonder how we can do better with not mailing in or throwing it overboard when that time comes, because life continues to throw us curveballs in the midst of our plans and our activities. And I wonder what will allow us to stay the course no matter what happens. And no matter what happens can be a lot. So I'm excited to dive on in today to learn about what a lot has looked like for us and how we've continued to overcome and persist. So it's going to be a great one there, Emmy Neal.
Well, absolutely. Napoleon Hill calls it the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. And again, I'm not sure if I said my name, but thank you, Peter. My name is Ann McNeil. Okay. All right. So let's welcome to the podcast our other special co-host, Galen Bingham. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. This is a really important principle because the only thing that I know for sure is that no plan will go according to plan. So, one of the things that I reflect on when I think about persistence is I think of the words of one of my longtime mentors, Mr. Stan Hutchin, I talk about a lot. And he used to say, the thing about anomalies is that one happens every year. So let's plan for an anomaly to happen. So it's said differently. The only thing that we know is that there are going to be hard times. There are going to be times when we're not going to feel like doing this thing that we say that we want to do. So let's plan a strategy for how we're going to be persistent in those moments. Let's think of what will it take for us to stay the line when everything around us, all the analysis, all the people, everything says, Galen, you should probably choose something else, right? This isn't going to work, right? So let's be mindful and plan for persistence, which sounds kind of oxymoronic, but we should plan for how we're going to be persistent because we know those tough times are coming. I can't wait to listen to and talk with our guests because anytime you can get a couple of coaches here talking about this idea of persistence, I think it's going to be meaningful.
Absolutely. And Galen, you just teed up our special guest, and we want to welcome to the podcast today, Jessica Rich. Good morning, Jessica. Please come on the podcast. And as she's coming on, we want to let you know that Jessica is a certified executive and self wellness coach. She's a keynote speaker, author, professor, and founder of a thriving health and wellness company. Her mission is to inspire high-performing professionals to align personal well-being with professional success. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've been here before, and we're welcoming you back because you were so phenomenal then. And of course, you do persist with your clients and your business, and we want to welcome you here. But we want to go back a little bit as we're going to also welcome our uh, YouTube audience, always so dependable and always here. So, Jessica, give me a second. I'm going to ask Peter James, since he's not on mute, to welcome our YouTube loyal followers. And then we're going to have you share a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So once again, good morning, everyone. I love those of you who are on YouTube. Thank you so much for being with us. Please feel free to like and share this podcast. Definitely hit that thumbs up like button right away so that you can automatically allow this to the algorithms to run with this show today. I want to make sure that I acknowledge Jewel C. Moore. Good morning there, Jewel. Good to see you this morning. Dr. Victoria Long Coleman. Carla Hill, the Soul Care Report. Hope you're doing well as well. Beverly Matthews, Lynn Whitfield. Good morning, Lynn. Shannon Charlton as well. A lot of the regulars, some new folks as well. Do we have anybody here? Yeah, we got a lot of folks who are also in our Zoom studio today there. And McNeil, we have Angela Williams, Angeline Lindor, Francine Black, Gregory Bell, Jorge Cantero, Quito Johori. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. Tunisia Freeman Foster, all of you, thank you so much for being here. Please come back, same time, same channel, every Saturday morning. Right back to you, McNeil.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jessica, we're talking about persistence. And when you think of persistence, can you take us back to your early beginnings? Because I think it's very important that our audience know, how did you get here? So from your early beginnings, whether that's childhood or early adulthood, or even in your business, can you take us back and share with us a little bit about your journey, your story, and then we'll go into the other questions.
Absolutely. So I would have to say one of the most pivotal moments for me when it comes to persistence is thinking about my experience in corporate America. And so at the time I was young, I had a career and a job that allowed me to travel across the country. Being in my early 20s, I was making what I thought was really good money. And I set a goal to want to get into leadership. I knew that I was making an impact on the people around me and really was seen as a resource. And so I made a goal and a plan to get into leadership, was very intentional about the relationships that I was building, doing the things that I needed to develop myself. And I felt like I kept hitting roadblocks. I'm an introvert naturally, and so I'm quiet. And to me, I really had to get comfortable with getting uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is I was getting a lot of feedback about not being genuine, not being authentic. And I didn't see myself that way. And although I didn't always agree with the feedback, I really didn't have a supportive manager. I had to take the feedback and take some accountability. What can I take from this feedback? I may not agree with all of it. I may not understand the obstacles that I felt like I was experiencing that was not helping me get to my goal to leadership on the timeline that I thought I should. And so, taking that feedback, I found some of the positives. So, one thing I intentionally would do is create a strategy and plan about every time I went to a different deployment, how do I build relationships with people? How do I show up? How do I be intentional about showing up as a leader, not being in a leadership role? And so, although it took me over a year to even get supported to be into leadership, for me, it was not letting those things that they felt like blows almost, because I just didn't understand where it was coming from. But I was intentional about how do I position myself where I make it difficult where they can't tell me no. And so I just kept pushing. I would take the feedback, I would review it with my mentors and find a strategy and a plan to show up as authentically myself, but showing development in that feedback that I was receiving. And so not only was I able to position myself to be supported, but my goal was to become a leader, but in Dallas only. And in a corporate space, when you're not mobile, some people can consider that as you're shooting yourself in the foot because you need to be mobile to go anywhere. And I believe that, especially I'm a woman of faith, that I had done the work and I was intentional that if they wanted me to be in leadership and I had shown those skills, that I had positioned myself. And so I took a promotion opportunity where it wasn't the most desirable at the time going into leadership, but I was so passionate about leading people that I didn't let that discourage me. In less than 12 months, I was promoted to the role that I really wanted, and I was already in Dallas. And so, what I think about persistence and what that taught me early on is don't consider the delays and the roadblocks as a no. Don't let it discourage you. Be willing to pivot, create an environment where it's feedback enriched. You know, sometimes the feedback can be hard, it can be harsh, it teaches you to have tough skin, but it also helped me to be a strong leader in helping my leaders think the same way. And so I've taken that experience and really kind of pivoted into how do I incorporate that into entrepreneurship. And so it's helped me with my coaching business and my travel business of I may not have all the people around me in the corporate space, but how do you keep going when it feels like, the progress is very slow? You don't always understand why you aren't where you want to be, but it gave me the strength and the ability to say, this is the goal, knowing how to pivot, understand that sometimes strategies have to change, and being patient with myself in the progress. So I think that's one of the most highlights when it comes to persistence for me.
Wow, you said a mouthful. Can you take us back before the corporate job? Before you had your first opportunity to go into corporate, what was persistence saying to you at an earlier age? Because I'm just wondering if you've always had this spirit of persistence or you developed it somewhere along the way.
So I definitely think it showed up throughout my childhood. So I'm one of eight. I have seven siblings. I fall somewhat in the middle. And so I think that I grew up in an environment where, my mom and my aunt who was in the household were very supportive. And so as a child, there were things that I wanted to do. I was in the magnet program for communications. So I knew that I wanted to go to a school in middle school that supported that, and then also a high school that supported that dream of being in communications, broadcasting. And so I was very persistent in the things that I did to position myself to get the support from my family, being intentional about showing up in a positive way, getting the good grades, doing all the things that you should do if you want to have the support of your family and my mother specifically. And so it really started there, knowing what I wanted at a young age and going after it, even when I got to college, very intentional about everything that I did. I would have to say I'm a person that don't accept no. And so if I get a no, then okay, well, how do I pivot to get a yes? And sometimes that takes months, could take years, but that started at a very young age for me.
And I asked that question because I think it's critically important for all of our listeners to know that oftentimes we have children that we can either encourage this persistence in them or we can squash it, and so that's evidence that you had a very supportive family. I'm going to go to Galen. I know he's smiling broadly. He has something he wants to share.
Yeah, boy, I had my own questions coming up, and YouTube didn't wait. YouTube is not wasting any time. We got questions from Jules Seymour, and she wants to know. Well, first of all, let me get to Velan Whitfield. Velan Whitfield's got a question. She says, "What do you see? Do you see a difference between being consistent and being persistent? And if so, what's the difference between the two?"
Oh, that's a really good question. One thing I want to say is like for me, being persistent is continue to choose me and myself. So I choose me as my mantra and making a decision to choose what I wanted, even when I feel like it's not all roses and it's not flowery, right? And so being consistent is being able to show up regularly and doing the things over and over. But persistence for me is just continue to do those things when you are hitting those roadblocks and you are getting those setbacks. And I do think there's a difference between the two because I can consistently go to the gym, which I do. I have a trainer. Um, but I'm persistent in trying to reach my goals where I travel all the time. So I feel like, I am not as consistent when it comes to eating well, and getting those results. And so I definitely think there's a difference between the two for sure.
Got it. Got it. And then Jules C. Moore wants to know what was the hardest part of staying in a position when harsh feedback it seemed to be coming from everywhere and you were learning something new about yourself, as you mentioned, being an introvert. What was the hardest part?
So I know one thing that this podcast talks about a lot is, the mastermind and being intentional about having people around you who pour into you, who encourage you, who are positive, but then also hold you accountable. And so there were times where I cried talking to my mentor because I didn't understand how you can be so intentional and genuine and receive that type of feedback. And the hardest part was the reality of I have to have tough skin. Like
Mm,
I can't take everything personal, because sometimes feedback is not about you, it's about the other person. But I still can be intentional about understanding what I can pull from the feedback to make me a better leader. And so it really was learning not to take it personal, but then also not wearing it on my sleeve. Being young, sometimes I showed up and you can tell I received feedback that wasn't always favorable. And so I had to learn to think of the positive of that feedback and not always saying it's just negative.
wow. Okay. Well, we just jumped right in. Dr. Peter, you want to talk about this video?
Absolutely. Lots of stuff going on for sure. Such a great, excuse me, such a great topic there, Jessica. Very excited to dive into this persistence with you a little bit more. But before we do, for everyone who's watching, you've seen this video before. If you're new, you haven't. So this is kind of like an introduction to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you've never had the chance to peruse through the entire book, this gives a nice overview overall. So give it a listen, dive on in when you get the chance. Pick it up. It is the number one bestseller as it relates to self-help, but also patterning your life in a certain form or fashion. So give it a listen. Thank you so much.
Number one is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step two is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step three is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number four is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number five is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step six, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number seven is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. Boy, that video really does, for me anyway, does a great job of demonstrating how all these principles work in concert with one another. So, Ann, want to go back to you, but before I do, I want to tell everyone, if you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to hit that thumbs up icon, like and share as we're having this conversation with Jessica Rich. So, Ann, back to you.
All right, thank you. And again, welcome everybody who's here in the Zoom joining us today. It's very exciting. Jessica, we talked about this principle. There are lots of other principles that as we heard from the video. But can you share with us your introduction to this book? And what was your first introduction to the book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and your reaction or thoughts at that time?
So my first introduction was probably about 12 years ago. I was really focused on financial literacy, trying to better understand legacy, position myself to for retirement, and really develop and become more educated. And so this is one of many books that I came across. And at the time, it helped me better understand how to be very intentional with not only my goals, but writing it out. So I'm really big on, um, at the beginning of the year and also throughout the year, creating vision boards. And so I've created actual vision boards that I can put up in my room, or I do electronic vision boards. But this book helped me to be able to write things out, to create different strategies and goals in my life in different areas, and really understand legacy isn't just not necessarily the financial piece, but like how do you make a legacy in everything that you do, in the relationships, in your work. And so that's something I've been able to carry forward over the last 12 plus years.
Now take us back to a struggle, a challenge, an opportunity for growth, something that you persisted in when everybody around you was saying, hey, listen, it's not going to work. Give it up, give it up, give it up. Uh, either you don't have what it takes or it's not worth it. Can you share with us an experience where all the naysayers and doubters were whispering in your ear and sometime in your face?
Absolutely. So I remember that I was in a position that I had prayed for. I wanted and was very happy there, but I was ready to do something else. And so, one thing I try not to do is put myself in a box. I don't want to limit what I can do, especially about the things that I'm passionate for. And there was an opportunity that I was really passionate about, something I prayed on, and a lot of people did not think it was a good fit. They didn't think it was worth the stress and the money. And the one thing that I learned over the last, 18 years working in a corporate space was you don't always do for the money when you have purpose. Like if you're passionate about it, the money does not always matter because sometimes you're going to do more than what you actually get paid for. And so hearing all of my peers around me not really be supportive, and understand the way that I wanted to go, knowing that I was going to take a pay cut, um, was definitely a situation where I had to be intentional about creating new relationships with individuals who did support my purpose in the direction that I wanted to go, and understand not only mixing up the people that I was surrounding myself around, but how do I be intentional about understanding that role and position better? And so it ended up being a promotion that I got, some may say very quickly, within a 12-month period of me expressing this is what I want, this is the strategy that I'm going to put in place. I'll be honest, I didn't have to do some of the work that some of my peers had to do to get that opportunity. But when you have a strategy and you know your purpose and you have a goal and you're intentional about executing on that, sometimes our paths just look differently. And so, me being able to get into that position in a very short time for some people, and exceed is something that I would have to say was a journey, and it's something that occurred over the last several years. But when it comes to the naysayers, the one thing I learned and had to be very intentional about is you have to pour into yourself positively because sometimes you can't help the people that are around you, right? It can be family, it can be friends, it can be coworkers, it can be, someone you directly report to. And you don't get to choose your leader at times. And so I've always been intentional over the last 5 or 6 years to start my morning with positivity to kind of sidetrack or push aside some of that negativity that I hear throughout the day. But for me, it was just being very intentional about surrounding myself around new people, and understanding too that everybody doesn't understand your purpose and what God has planned for your life.
Oh, you said a lot. You said a lot. The strategy, the self discipline, your morning routine, being very intentional, and everybody does not blank, 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 blank. Can you take us back to your morning routine and if you're persistent with that?
So, so over maybe about 6 years ago, I was very intentional about implementing self care because I was working in a very high stress environment. And so, in my research of learning how I can start my day in a more positive manner, I learned about the alpha stage. And so, it's the first 20 minutes after we wake up. That's when your mind is the most impressionable. So if you pick up your phone and you go to social media, the news, the radio, sometimes starting your day with potential negativity carries throughout the day and it makes an impact. And so I started being intentional about what I actually listen to. So, of course, starting my day with gratitude. That's one of the first things I do when I wake up. But then I'm also very intentional about what I listen to. And so I have a playlist on YouTube that I listen to, and whether that's devotional, that's affirmations, motivational videos. But that first 20 minutes is the most impressionable. And so I am very intentional and consistent with that, because I know that it really changes how I see myself and how I show up.
Yes, intentional, but I also think you're very persistent with that because it's very obvious that, and it goes back to Lynn Whitfield's question about the difference between consistency and persistence, because I would guess that you don't always feel like it when you first wake up.
No. Some mornings you just want to keep it quiet. But when it's become a habit, you have to be, I think the intentionality in being persistent is also switching it up. So maybe I'm not listening to the same person. Over the years, I've learned that maybe I need to switch up the voices or the channels. But you're right. Every morning, if I'm waking up at 8 a.m., 6 a.m., 5 a.m., it definitely, you have to be persistent to be able to keep that up.
Well, now, while you were speaking, I don't know if those of you can see, I reached back and I picked up this book. It's called My Daily Date with Myself. And everything that you just shared is what I write about here. It's in a journal. And so when you talk about being persistent, and I'm going to go to Dr. Peter James, it is personal. Whatever persistence is to each one of you that's listening, I'd like to have our guests, whether you're here on YouTube or whether you're in the studio, can you just put in the chat one persistent act? Can you put in the chat one persistent act that you do every day? And then we're going to go to Dr. James for his question.
Yeah, Jessica, good stuff. You had me thinking already, especially about that morning routine for sure. So I want to piggyback on something Anna was mentioning, and I want to talk in general about roadblocks, obstacles, and hurdles, even going back to your career. And I heard that friends and family get in the way, and maybe they're in your ear, maybe they're doubting. Oftentimes, friends and family who love us, they want us to be safe, and they don't want a hard road for us. Therefore, they will inject their opinions. We've all done it in some form or fashion, right? But what might that have looked like for you to overcome that? You kind of already talked about how the friends that do that for that matter. But even as simple as getting up in the morning, and what are you doing to ensure that the getting up is a smoother process, if that makes sense? So how do you overcome these roadblocks, obstacles, and hurdles in order to remain consistent with your persistence?
I think it's self-evaluation,
Mhm.
always checking in with yourself. For instance, so my morning routine, I do start early, intentional about going to the gym and meeting with a trainer. And so noticing that I'm sluggish and I'm not moving
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
quickly as I should in the morning, being late because I'm oversleeping. And so just kind of taking a look at my schedule, my life, how I'm winding down at night was one thing that I was very intentional about. Like, do I have enough wind down time? Am
Mhm.
I, removing social media within 2 hours, an hour before bed?
Mhm. Mhm.
What am I doing to prepare myself to get a good night's rest? And so, with me canceling, I was canceling sessions with my trainer because I was so drained
Mhm.
based on what I had going on during the day that I just wasn't resting well. And so therapy has been helpful to kind of
Mhm.
process that, but always looking at my life and saying, okay, where can I make adjustments? Where can I pivot? What's getting in the way? Where do I need to put boundaries in place? Sometimes you have to tell yourself, no, no, I'm not going to scroll Instagram until I fall asleep. Maybe I'll listen to a playlist of rain music on YouTube.
Mhm.
I started reading a book, but I think that you have to be intentional about reflecting and looking at yourself and understanding those roadblocks or those challenges and what seems difficult and how you can influence that.
Galen and I, in the midst of our mastermind yesterday, we were talking about a little bit about being persistent, even from a job perspective, especially when you're owning your own business. You know this, and you're having to um, go after potential clients and do it regularly. And let's just face it, maybe some of you are not like this. I'll just speak for myself. The majority of times we get no's, right? But how do we remain consistent and persistent in light of the no's? Because it's easy to fall off the wagon when you hear no's 80 to 90% of the time. But we're pressing for that 10 to 20%. And as you reflect on what I'm even just saying, from a business perspective, how does that resonate for you, whether it's in life or even for your business as well?
When it comes to especially coaching,
Yeah.
right? So I have 12 plus years of coaching experience in a corporate space, ICF certified. So I've done the work there, 500, 600, 700 plus hours of coaching, and I know the value that I bring. And so when you're looking to expand your business and coaching clients and looking for speaking opportunities and being told no, right, not right now, or getting no response at all, that is discouraging.
Mm,
But I think the one thing that keeps me persistent is my own journey and knowing what I needed, and also understanding that every client isn't your client, right? So every individual that I come in contact with, even if it's a no, if it's a business, an organization that I'm in contact with, to talk about like self wellness in the workplace, and I'm told no, I look at that as that's not my opportunity or not right now. And I just think about who I was 6 years ago and what she needed, and I show up for her.
mm,
So on LinkedIn, right, I don't want to create 3 posts a week, but I'm talking to the Jessica 6 years ago. And I know that that's my ideal client. And so one thing I had to understand is I can't get upset or discouraged because I'm not getting the number of clients that I want. I want quality over quantity, because when you have a certain number, sometimes you drain yourself when you're pouring into the wrong cups. And so I just had to learn that very early on, that I need to remember the why. And the why was I was drained. I was hitting a roadblock. I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. And so I had to take the time to build myself back up. And so all the work that I do is for the Jessica 6 years ago, and knowing that my ideal client, that I'll connect with them. And I have to say, LinkedIn is not my thing. It's not one of my strong areas. All of my speaking engagements have come from LinkedIn,
mm.
all of them. And so although I don't want to post on LinkedIn, or I'm trying to navigate as it changes, and how do I connect with people, every speaking engagement has come from LinkedIn and someone reaching out based on a post that they saw that resonated with them. And so that reminds me that even when I don't want to do it, or I don't understand why I'm not getting the numbers that I want, I have to continue to just keep being persistent and push through, and remembering my why of why I started this 6 years ago.
Good stuff, Galen. I know you can relate
Oh
to
my
everything that
gosh.
Jessica's mentioning.
I can relate to so much. I've said that when I first started my coaching career and went through the certifications, if you had 50 bucks and a problem, you had a coach. And so I had a lot of clients, but I wasn't doing the kind of work that would inspire me, that would encourage me, that would replenish me. And I had to get very, very specific on the kind of coach I am and the kind of clients that work for me, that work with me. And so this idea of not every client is the right client, I can absolutely identify with. I want to bring in a question from Dr. Victoria Long Coleman. And she says, how do you know when persistence has crossed the line into stubbornness, or you're exhausted, or you just can't no longer hear? I mean, I can't hear anybody else. How do you know when it's time to double down in persistence, or when it's time to change because it's calling for a different strategy?
So it's so important to have coaches and mentors invest in that, because sometimes you need an outside voice. I know that I can be stubborn, but one thing that I learned very early on in coaching is I have to be able to determine if it's time to pivot or when it's not working. And so that's why I'm intentional at the beginning of the year, setting goals and then also reevaluating that. And so maybe earlier this year, myself, last year, I was doing things that the strategy just wasn't moving at all. And so I took time to sit down with a mastermind group, recreate my entire strategy for 2026. And I have check ins quarterly, and quarterly, I'm checking different measures to determine if I need to pivot or change something. But yeah, being stubborn is you're not willing to make any adjustments. You're just so focused on this one goal. But if you're intentional at the beginning of your strategy, that you understand the pivots and the check ins, that'll help you kind of get over that. I'll be honest, I've been exhausted. I've hit burnout as a self-wellness coach. I'm going to be honest about that. Like, I have still hit burnout. I'm not above that. But it is also about just understanding what's not working. And even though you really, really want to be so committed to one goal, one strategy, understanding this is not working, what else can we do? And I do think sometimes it's important to be able to have those coaches and mentors who can share their experiences, different strategies that have worked for them, and also help you understand, like, this isn't working, Jessica. Let's go to plan B. And so sometimes you need those voices. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah,
before you go,
let me just jump in one more question here because I hear so many of the other principles of Think and Grow Rich in almost every answer, and you just really highlight how all these principles work together. I'm curious, when did this book become more than just a book for you? Because I'm going to tell you, in my library, I got 200 or 300 books, and one of them at best I've read once. But this book, I keep going back to it's kind of reoccurring thing. I mean, the book is pretty tattered. I probably should get a new one, but I refuse to because this is kind of a badge of honor that this book is so tattered up. So, when did this book become more than just a book for you?
It became more than just a book for me when I decided to pursue entrepreneurship. In a working in a corporate space, you have so much support, right? You're working for an organization that has the money to pour into you and the resources. But making this decision to go into coaching and really not having anyone around me that was a business owner that had gone the coaching path, it felt very lonely at times because I didn't have anybody to ask questions, or when things didn't go right, I felt alone. And so using some of these principles really helped me at the beginning. And I'll say the first 2 years, it didn't happen right away, really helped me to understand the importance of understanding my purpose, creating goals, strategies, being intentional, consistency, and also not getting discouraged when things just seem very slow. And so I would say it's probably about 6 years ago when it really became very relevant and important for in my life to, build this business.
Fantastic, fantastic. Ms. Ann, sorry for cutting you off earlier. I just had to sneak that in.
oh, it's okay. Jessica mentioned something that we always like to connect, and that was the mastermind. So, Jessica, are you currently in a mastermind? And if so, how has it helped you persist through, those tough times? And wait, before you answer the question, I really want you to speak to individuals who are in a mastermind group, who are interested in getting in a mastermind group, but really understanding the benefit and power of the mastermind group as it connects all these principles with your mastermind accountability buddy. Thank you.
So I have an opportunity where I'm connected to two different mastermind groups, and so the one that I participated in earlier this year, really was pivotal in me making a shift of understanding things were not going right. I needed to make a change. And so being able to have a plan and a layout of and guidance is huge, for me, but being able to identify my goals, my purpose, what's not going well, what I need to pivot, and seeking the guidance of the mastermind, but then also accountability. There's check ins, right? Are you doing what you said you're going to do? How is that going? Do you need support? Getting the different ideas for pivots or other things to consider based on what worked well in their business, what did not. But then also there's this sense of empowerment when you're in a mastermind, and what I mean by that is sometimes we can limit ourselves without realizing we're limiting ourselves. And so I may come up with a strategy where I think I should just do XYZ. And being in a mastermind, working with someone specifically and she's actually participated in your mastermind, Miss McNeil. And so she's able to say, what about this? And have you thought about that? Taking it to the next level, really helping to stretch me beyond what I think that I am capable of doing.
Awesome. Awesome. We're going to start preparing to land the plane, but we do have a question from Jessica. Galen, if you want to take that one.
Okay, yes. So let's see, Jessica. There's so many questions. Uh, let's see, Jessica. I went to your LinkedIn to follow you, and I want to ask you. You coach women for women who feel stuck. Where does persistence usually break down for them, and how do you help them build around it?
So, just kind of speaking to my prior experience and what I see in a lot of my coaching clients, um, I think a lot of the clients that I have are just mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually exhausted. And that's because a lot of times they, have a goal, but they don't have a strategy. So they're throwing everything at the wall and trying to balance it all and not understanding that maybe the strategy isn't working, or it's time to pivot. But then also just carrying a lot. And so that exhaustion is what kind of creates multiple roadblocks that they don't know how to push through, or they just don't have the motivation. And so the conversations that we have is helping them understand the root cause, which is okay, what's causing the exhaustion? How can you make some changes in your life? I'm a single woman. I don't have children, and so some of my clients are mothers, they're wives, and so everything I can't relate to, but we're able to get down to that root cause and identify what is creating the exhaustion, what is causing them not to be motivated to achieve their goals or give 100% in whatever they're doing. And also helping them understand that they can't compare their journey to everyone else's. It's easy for me to look at all of you on the call and just compare myself, look at your LinkedIn, your experiences, but the reality is, like, our paths are different and they're meant to be different. And so helping them really understand their why, not the cliche why, and
Mhm.
then how do they execute that and how do they actually get to those results. And so my coaching allows us to build that strategy, me to be that accountability partner, me to be that person to help encourage them, with small acts. When you try to bite off more than you can chew, that also contributes to being discouraged and exhaustion. And so we just try to create realistic strategies that helps them to continue to focus on their goals, but holistically, well-being is important in my coaching. And so you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if you have nothing to give, how are you going to show up? And so it's helping create some strategies where they can continue to be persistent even when they're tired, they're exhausted, and they're creating that consistency that helps them show up for themselves and their purpose.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you. Miss Ann?
Oh, yes, we're going to go ahead and have uh, Dr. Peter James share a little bit about the annual meeting and why is it important for us to plan? Because as you're talking, Jessica, about what you do on an annual basis, and I think you have a check-in with yourself and maybe others more than once a year. Would I say that would be correct? Well, we do too. And we host an annual meeting, and Dr. James is going to share about that. As
Yeah, I want to share about the annual meeting, but I also want to I have a question right afterwards for Jessica, especially as it relates to persistence versus strategy. I heard you say that in one of your responses a little while ago, and I want to kind of address that because I think it might be help myself, but also someone in the audience as well. Hey, this is for the audience. If you don't have a mastermind, if you don't have people that you come together with regularly who challenge you, support you, help bring you up, take you to higher heights, it's time. It's time to find a group, a team like that to be able to support you. And we even take it a step further, as you see here on the screen. Not only do we have that internal mastermind that we have, all of us on this call have those individuals that we meet with on a regular basis who sometimes will ask us those uncomfortable questions. But we also take it a step further and go to the annual accountability meeting every year in order to help strategize, as Jessica had mentioned earlier, about our year, about our future, and what we need to do better of. As an example, are we investing correctly for ourselves and our families? Are we leaving a legacy for our next generations, or even our significant others and siblings or cousins, nephews, whatever the case may be? So we're not just focusing on career and business. We're also focusing on many areas of your life, such as your health and your wellness, and what you need to do day in and day out for the foreseeable future in order to preserve but also leave that legacy. This is that annual accountability meeting that you see here. It's not an annual meeting. It's not a conference, but it's a way to come together to reinforce what you know needs to be done, but for some reason it's not getting done. And so give it a listen. Listen, we have a special discount. Oh, actually, this one shows it, but I don't think we have this discount anymore. It's a Black History Month discount. So that would be past a little bit. But check us out at internationalmasterminds.com in order to come by and see us January 8th and 9th. We all will be there, all of us hosting this show today. And we look forward to seeing you there as well. Jessica, I want to come back to you. You mentioned strategy, and what I immediately thought of was, okay, we're being persistent, but that persistence is going nowhere. At what point do we take that step back and address the strategy that may be flawed in order to course correct, continue to be persistent, but course correct? And I'm asking that question because many of us will continue doing the things we need to do, and it may not be the right things. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, for me, just some of the things that I've observed is, and so when you create a strategy, you want to have some goal markers that you want to check in on. And sometimes you have to understand if the goal is unrealistic, and if you need to make some changes. But looking at those goals, the progress that I've made towards those, specifically when it comes to growing clients, right now I have a travel business where we travel across the world. And so, even when it comes to the goal of the number of trips and the individuals that I'm getting to sign up, checking in on my strategy of promotion and connecting with clients and potential guests, you have to be able to take a look back and evaluate over a certain period, right? So, for me, it's quarterly. Although I have monthly check ins, but I like to look at a 30-day period and then a quarterly period and understand if it's not working and just flat out say, is it not working? Do I need more time? The last situation that I had, I saw no growth. And so I gave it a 6 month period and we made pivots within that 6 months. And so I understood that, okay, I need to completely change the strategy because I'm not getting what I want. And that included accountability with my virtual assistant, right? Am I holding her accountable? Am I giving her enough tasks and taking things off my plate to be able to pour into different areas? Also, understanding delegation. That's one thing that I see with a lot of my clients that they struggle with. But are you delegating enough? Are you trying to take it on? Because everything isn't my strong suit. And so I need to know my strengths and my areas for improvement. And sometimes you have to task those out. And so the strategy for me is not only reevaluating on a 30-day basis or quarterly, but I am very, very intentional about investing in coaches. I understand that financially, sometimes that's not always feasible for everyone, but having mentors and coaches has really helped me when I have blind spots, understand the different pivots and strategies that I can implement for myself.
I love that. The benchmarks, I heard that loud and clear. And we need to have that time where we're able to reevaluate how things are going or where we need to pivot. And so identifying that quarterly or that 6 month one, that's definitely something that many of us can apply more and much better. And McNeil.
Yes, I just want to remind everybody, if you joined us just a little bit late, we're talking today with Jessica Rich, and Jessica has over now 2 decades of corporate experience, including 12 years in leadership within a Fortune 39 company. She understands the pressures of high performance environments and the toll they can take on well being. So her transformational journey has sparked her passion for helping others to live and lead with greater purpose, harmony, and authenticity. And she is definitely a certified executive and self wellness coach, keynote speaker, author, professor, and founder of a thriving health and wellness company. And she does travel. So kudos to you, Jessica. We're going to prepare to land this plane, Jessica. I don't know where the time went. We want to thank everybody who came here in person in the Zoom, but also all of our dedicated followers on YouTube. We want to remind everybody, please remember, comment, like, and share the podcast. But also, if you are receiving any value, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. And we're going to start with Galen Bingham asking for his takeaways from today and how you can connect with him as an executive coach also. Galen?
Yeah, I just really, first of all, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. It almost sounded like listening to my accountability partners on during my mastermind because you're talking about so many meaningful things. And the thing that I got a reassurance about is the importance of having other people who will hold you accountable for who you say you are or who you say you're trying to be. I know my accountability partners can be annoying at times because they have the audacity to like coach me in the way and ask me the exact same questions I'm asking my clients. Wait a second, this is great going out. It's not as comfortable coming back in, but you need to have that if in fact you're serious about accomplishing your goals. My name is Galen Bingham. I'm the leadership strategist. You can find me almost everywhere, but I would encourage you to check out my Substack page. We are sharing key thought leadership insights about things that are impacting my corporate clients all over the place, whether that is how they manage pressure, how they work through personal identity, how they're showing up in those spaces that are really, really important. My job is to help expand perspective so that brilliant executives can make important decisions when the pressure is on. So, would love for you to check us out on Substack and become a Power Code Insider. Dr. Peter, what about you, man?
Yeah, good stuff. Jessica, great to have you back again. Please come back again in order to dive on into what we need to do to be persistent or even in any of these principles as we move forward. I truly appreciate it. The benchmarks was huge for me. Even the persistent to hearing what that looks like for you is phenomenal. And I'm encouraging those of you who are watching and listening on YouTube or even here in the studio to kind of put the mirror in front of yourself and ask you, hey, what areas of my life, business or career can I tighten up in order to be more persistent? Because sometimes it's important to be persistent even when you can't see the outcome just yet. That's now we start migrating into faith there, McNeil, for sure. So thank you so much there, Jessica. Hey, folks, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. I'm the high performance coach helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on so many different platforms, the LinkedIn's. Actually, I'm off of Twitter. I'm off of Facebook, LinkedIn, maybe Instagram. But the best place is at everydaysamonday.net. Encourage you pick up the book if you can. But either way, just stay in touch. Let me know how I can support and help you to grow as you move forward as well. Back to you there, Emil.
All right, all right, all right. So we're going to go to you, Jessica, and any takeaways for you today, and how can people connect with you? Because they're already asking in the chat. So awesome, awesome job.
Thank you so much, and just thank you again for this opportunity to be here. So there are a couple ways that you can connect with me. You can connect with me on jessicarichcoaching.com, where you can get my self-care book. I have a self-care journal that really helps individuals, men and women, focus on prioritizing yourself and setting goals. If you are not used to being intentional about writing that out, it's a guided journal. It's a 30-day journal, and then there's a quarterly check-in at the end that you're able to use. Also, if your organization is looking for someone to really help bring wellness into the environment, you can also schedule to book with me there. And then I Choose Me Travel Experiences is my most recent baby. Being persistent and understanding that, pivoting and expanding has been one thing that this has come about. And so I've been very intentional about creating spaces where we can go and live and experience life and pour into ourselves, choose ourselves across the world. And so I've gone to Bali, Greece. We're going to Italy at the end of the month, and we'll be in Ghana next year. And so you can definitely follow me there, subscribe for more upcoming travel experiences that are for women only, but we also have co-ed experiences as well. So thank you again for having me on the show.
All right. You got me at the travel, so I will just hold my horses and sit still for a moment because every one of these places that you're sharing, and thank you, Galen, for sharing that. I have been to every single one of those, so that is so exciting. Thank you. Well, again, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping you to build a stronger, better life and business. And Jessica, I have so many pages, I don't know where to start today, but I would give you a couple of my takeaways. Your daily exercise that you do, and the fact that you also have a journal, it just speaks to me because again, for a persistent goal, if you will, it is so necessary to have something we're aspiring for in order to persist consistently. And for the fact that you start your day off by investing in yourself, I think that kind of like I can have to tip my hat to you for that. Also, when you talked about the power of your mastermind group and how it allows you to do planning, to lay out your goals, to get guidance, to identify what works well, what is not working, having accountability, having a place to check in, having support, having ideas and consideration and empowerment. That's a large part of who we are and why we're here as an international mastermind association. And when you think about just having that along with your executive coaches and your mentors. And so you showed us that you want to be, we should all consider being persistent in having self-care, but also professional support in so many different ways. So I'm not going to go through all of mine, because let me count the pages: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I have 14 pages here, so I'm not going to go through them all. But we want to thank you. And again, if any of you would like to connect with me, I am hosting my Niche to Be Rich event, which I host every year in November. And you can join me by going to annmcneil.com. The details of our Niche to Be Rich is there. And like I said, when the podcast started, my desire is to connect my $1 million clients to billions. And what I do during this retreat is to niche down, depending upon what business and what industry you're in, we niche down into how to help you increase your bottom line. So you can go to annmcneil.com and you can get the details there. But for us today, we want to thank every one of you for joining. Jessica, you have been a gem. We're going to look forward to having you come back. And we want to encourage everybody, please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click that notification bell as you comment, like, and share with your community. And so till next time, remember to continue to think and grow richer, but also niche to be richer. Have a great day. Thank you.